Because it's a presupposition, isn't it?
No. If you went around the natural world with your magnifying glass and you start building understandings and be like, oh look, I found these skulls, they're very similar. Oh look, we have a similar DNA structure to them.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting,
We'll just
everything's
take
similar.
this,
And then if you came across something, hang on a second, something weird's happened here. We've got this part of our biology, that's strange. Then we could say, oh, there needs to be something there that explains this strangeness, where we didn't need, and then we could say, oh, that's God. Well, we don't need to come in and say, no, I think I need to find a God in this situation.
Well, when you say evolution, do you mean evolution as gradual, finding of fossils? Because if you're looking for an exception, I would say the Cambrian explosion is an exception to that.
But are you saying that is part of God? Yeah, are you saying that's part of God's?
No, I'm saying if you're looking for an empirical evidence that requires an alternative understanding, I'm saying that, I think.
No way, no. Surely the Cambrian explosion can be explained through naturalism, through the laws of physics.
But it hasn't been, though. I'd love to hear your explanation with regards to it.
No, I'm not well informed about this era. But this is why I say, are you opposing, let's say, and I will propose a naturalistic explanation to that era. Are you saying that there was a... Sure. Are you saying there's a God influence in this era?
I'm saying that when you're dealing with evolution, and I'm saying that God is an explanation.
Here comes the rain.
Here comes the rain.
Damn God, ruining my conversation.
No, we actually believe rain is a blessing. It helps plants grow and, helps our sustenance, etc. But you know what? No, we've got an umbrella. I can give you one if...
Okay, well, it can have to be
It's up to you.
Okay,
Yeah, we can.
I'm gonna run.
If you feel uncomfortable, though, you're more than welcome to go. But let's see how big it is. You know what? Let him keep that. Let's see if this is big enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there for the cat. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise. Is that all right?
Yeah. We're going to have to choose a side to look at the cameras, or we'll have to face way too close with each other.
That one's good. That's fine. So I guess what I'm saying is that if God has to enter the conversation of evolution, oh, thank you. No, we'll share. We'll do like 5 minutes each. If God is to be mentioned in this discussion, one has to discuss the validity of the God hypothesis, and if that is actually a valued addition. And you made an interesting point. You said, okay, there has to be empirical evidence regarding this. But my argument, Jamie, would be that do you think that is the main criteria of evidence, empiricism?
Sort of. I think this is sort of train tracking, because obviously evidence is incredibly important, but like having an elegant theory or a theory that is very well explaining, things like these, you wouldn't really call them evidence, but you'd say that's philosophical framework to sort of give a ground into different ideas. Is this,
For example, evolution. Evolution is not something that we've observed, we put under a microscope, that we've measured as the typical evidence that many people would see today. I'm sure you'd agree that there have been archaeological discoveries over time. And then what we've done is we've used inference.
Sure. But remember, I came here because I remember speaking and I was given my case.
Yes.
And then I realised, actually, you have the same, obligation as I. Like, I'm looking at the world and so are you, and I can ask you, how do you explain the...
Of course you can.
Right. So then, while we discuss evolution, it seems like
that was the reason people enjoyed our discussion. I don't know if you saw it online. People like the fact that you're more than welcome to ask whatever you want. And you're more than welcome to kind of push at certain things, but as long as we both get something from that conversation, you're more than welcome to come back.
I'm trying to put it on you. I think you have an obligation, not an obligation, but your model has to account for the things that my model are trying to account to as well. So when you're asking me this question about, we haven't empirically observed evolution, then you used evolution in your answer of how we observe.
Okay, let me carry on that train track then. So if I was to continue that level of thought, I would say that whether it's evolution, whether it's Big Bang, whether it's South America or Africa, once being a giant continent, all of these things are kind of built up through inference primarily. And what I'm saying is that when somebody asks for evidence, I put forward and I postulate that inference also counts as evidence. Empiricism also counts as evidence. So does logic. So does philosophy. And if a person was to take all of those things, what you're doing is you are scaffolding. You're creating an argument. When some people, Jamie, come forward and they say, you know what, I just want empirical evidence. I'll take over now. Okay. I just want empirical evidence, and I say that, look, the very model that you're putting forward, evolution, doesn't necessarily rely solely upon empirical evidence. It also relies on empiricism, also relies mathematically on, for example, how you're plotting the data and the conclusions that you're drawing, and even relies on siding with certain data sets, but also certain cultural norms as well. So when you kind of take all these things into consideration, I say that, look, when a person comes and says, I want empirical evidence, I just want to break that that assumption of science, that we don't necessarily rely, like Big Bang. I'm sure you've come across people in the park. You agreed with Big Bang, isn't it? But many people in the park don't. Silly billies, aren't they? Well, I mean, it's they'll take their own data sets and they'll take their own analysis. But again, that's inference. I would say that the case for the Big Bang is very strong. The case for other than the Big Bang, I think it's scanty and it's lacking. But again, you know, people are presenting their own evidence, and both of them are valid scientific theories.
But I think, and I can just ask you, so how, just to clear it up, maybe you've answered it, how do you explain or tell me, how did so many species come to be?
Yeah, so we believe that just like we're dependent, species are dependent, they're dependent on something else, that's dependent on something else. You've got the ecosystems, you've got the elements that we see. I would postulate a very rhetorical, or, you know, you can answer it if you want, a question which is you can't have an infinite regress of dependent things, which is a philosophical approach which says that ultimately there has to be an end to that chain. And that end to that chain philosophically is called a necessary being. While somebody would say, oh, empirically, how can we, you know, evidence a necessary being? I would say that when it comes to metaphysical questions, science doesn't necessarily claim to answer those. That's why there then is a gap. For example, even moral questions. Yeah,
but can I just...
Sure.
It sounds like you're saying...
God of the gaps.
No. You're saying, look, this is the outcome of everything. But look, if I track it all back, it has to go to somewhere. And then that somewhere must propagate forward through the system. And you're basically just saying there's like a golden thread. And that golden thread is God. And therefore, I don't know how it's gone from God to now. But it's done it somehow. And isn't that amazing? Yeah, so, but that isn't quite as good as saying, I understand profound dynamics of the universe, I can write them down, codify them, I can explain how this came into being, I can try and track it with imperial evidence. To see, like, I think you're just doing a philosophical argument.
Okay, so just like I said, you got inference. I gave the example of a philosophical argument. I can give, for example, rational arguments as well, but what I'm saying is that regardless of how you see it, the question is that, for example, if I claim that there's a God, the burden of proof is on me. If you claim that there is no God, you're an atheist, you're taking a hardcore stance, then the burden of proof is on you. So coming back to my burden of proof, I gave you the philosophical argument, which was the contingency argument, that you can't have an infinite regress of dependent things, and which is one aspect of the argument. But then I would then use logic and rationality to then give characteristics to this necessary existence. But then also to add in that if we then also claim that there is, a God, but then there is a book as well, there is a prophet.
But can I?
Go ahead.
Say something? It sounds like your argument is this. Let's say I go home and someone goes, oh look, there's a dog here, and I go, oh, where did the dog come from? And I want to know, like, oh, we bought it from the shop around the corner and we drove it home. Instead of giving me that answer, they say, well, everything is contingent on the prior situation, and therefore if we go far enough back, there must be a base level necessary being. That's not the question I'm asking about how did that dog come to be in my house, is it? I want to know where it came from, as in around the corner from the shop, someone drove it in a car.
No,
there's different answers.
I get it, but what you're using a linguistic a double meaning here. For example, where did the dog come from? You're not saying where was the dog where has it existed from? You're asking in terms of our contemporary English language, you're saying like where was it bought from? But you used something else. However, when it comes to human being, we're not asking, where have we been bought from? We're asking a very simple question, where did we emerge from? There's a difference here. That's why there's a disanalogy.
Yeah,
so here, if we're talking about emergence of human beings rather than placement of a dog, that's why I think it's a bit of a disanalogy.
I agree. We're somewhat talking past each other. But sure. I just, why I like evolution very much.
Can I just attempt to answer your question? So
what's the question?
So, or your point, which is that just like if a dog was at home and someone's asking how is it there, what you're saying is, why not give the simplest explanation, the most logical explanation? Yeah. But I would argue that...
the nuts and bolts of the situation.
Yeah, but what I would argue is, when you're saying that this is a simple explanation, that over millions and billions of years, unconscious, unguided, materialistic, mindless forces have been coming together, probability upon probability upon probability, and they have created human beings that have the capacity to dream, to think, to feel, and this all happened because of a cosmic incident. How did that happen? That either happened by chance or by itself. I would say that this actually seems like a more plausible answer, which indeed does require a body of evidence. But I'm saying, and I can evidence this, that my body of evidence is actually more convincing. Has it stopped?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That it's more logical and more convincing than saying that, you know what, over millions and billions of years, this has just happened by itself over time by forces that we are giving.
No way, I totally disagree. That's why I'm trying to reiterate.
Sure.
That theory that you just spoke about is so brilliant at explaining our existence here. Like, it's so elegant and powerful that it must speak to then larger questions of like, what are we doing here? Where did we originate from? Well, we do have the nuts and bolts of the mechanics. Like,
which is that forces created everything.
Yeah, but like it's way more detailed than that, because like they understand how like the cell somewhat must have reasonable paths that it must have come to be, like creating a cell wall, another cell must have come in, not got digested, been part of it, a symbiotic relationship. They understand the structures of moving proteins around cells. They understand like RNA and DNA, the replication process. Like this is fundamental cell mechanics, yeah? That's profoundly
You're using
interesting.
very human terms, which is moving, placing, relationship.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying, and this is what my question to you last time was, that what you're doing is you're taking something which is abstract and you're giving it concrete principles. For example...
It's the other way around. The concreteness is the observation of birds, trees, plants,
I'll give you an example, like gravity. Like Stephen Hawking said, that gravity created everything, I don't know if you agree with that, but certainly you believe that forces created everything.
Yeah, I said as much.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that creating is something that is, comes from something that's conscious.
Not necessarily.
Can you give me an example of something that creates something that's unconscious?
Yeah.
Sure.
A self-replicating molecule in a sea of molecules. If any of them are able to move in a way that replicates itself, and then it will keep replicating itself, and then it will change into a better version of itself that's either able to replicate quicker, able to survive longer, able to protect itself more. You'll get a replicating machine that is better at replicating.
All you're doing is you're talking about asexual reproduction. There's a sexual reproduction, there's an asexual reproduction, and all it is it depends where the gametes are coming from. So it's not creating, it's not something that's unconscious. Cells, we believe, are conscious. I mean, they have nucleus, they have a cytoplasm, they've got endoplasmic reticulum. There's decisions that are being made through the mind, which is called the nucleus, which is the head of the cell.
Yeah, I wouldn't use this language
you believe
to
it's,
explain that situation.
How would you believe it's?
It's incredibly mechanistic.
But you don't believe there are decisions happening through the nucleus?
Well, okay, look. In a cell, my understanding is there's these long tubes, and they're made of a specific type of like atom that has a certain shape. And then there's these motor cells that carry other molecules which are inside the cell. And the way that this motor cell works is it has like a chemical reaction, and it steps along each chain, and it goes like that. It's like this motor cell. It's a very funny mechanism. That's all coded within chemistry, You don't need no consciousness in there to sort of get the little cell moving. So why inject consciousness when you don't need it?
Because when you're saying that you have millions, if not billions of cells coming together to form something which is cohesive to society, that is cohesive to our survival, that's cohesive to our reproduction rather than our destruction, then what you're doing is you're giving it certain characteristics that are very pro-human, very pro-creation. Whilst if something was, I'll give you an example of somebody you may respect, like Einstein. He says the most comprehensible thing, the most comprehensible thing about the universe, the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible. That if it was created by these mindless, materialistic, unguided, unconscious things, then surely things would be more random, haphazard. Akin to the chaos theory. The fact that we have more patterns, there's more purpose in life. That's not akin.
What's the argument called? Do you know, like the pushback against fine-tuning, which is like the many universes situation. Like, you don't know, this is way too philosophical for me. I have my other subject.
No problem, but I'm familiar with the argument as well. But that argument
because
again...
you say in a universe where it would just be chaos, no rules, you can't even follow it, that doesn't seem like a universe that you can really have a conversation like this in. So it's called, we are in the universe that we can have a conversation about. Therefore, it has to follow that do you know what I mean? We're in a universe.
Yeah, that's called the anthropic principle.
That's the word.
But then it falls in the fallacy of circular reasoning. It does, because what you're saying is you're assuming again that the universe has been created for human beings.
No, no.
It does.
I'm saying
you're saying if it wasn't for us being here, we wouldn't have been able to observe the fine-tuning, therefore the fine-tuning took place. For example, if I'm at home eating, cakes and ruining someone's birthday party, they're like, why are you here? Oh, well, if, you guys weren't here, then you wouldn't have observed me eating this. That doesn't explain why I'm eating the cake and ruining the birthday party.
No, it's the other way around, isn't it? Like, let's say there's a billion different universes with all different types of...
With no evidence.
Yeah, no evidence. Well, isn't there some like...
There's no evidence for the multiverse theory.
No,
only Marvel brings it up. And he's called Doctor Strange for a reason.
No, like empirical evidence, but like frameworks and theories.
Empirical evidence, philosophical evidence, like possible worlds, which again religious people posit, but we get accused of. But let's just say you can't explain one universe.
Yeah.
How is extrapolating that to unlimited amount of universes going to solve the problem?
Well, no. I was just what you call it, anthropic principle, isn't it? I was going to say how I don't think that is circular. I think that the idea, let's say there's a billion universes, all with different rules, in like they all fail, they keep breaking down, they're just chaos and nonsense. Yeah, we can't exist in that, but we do exist in one of them. Yeah, you wouldn't then look back and say, oh, isn't it a miracle that we exist in this one? No, you couldn't have existed in the other one, so this couldn't have existed.
But Jamie, are you positing some sort of new theory now, which is the natural selection of universes?
Well, I've got no worries about that. I'm straying again into a territory that I don't really know. But
physics.
No, well, it's more like it's way outside of our actual window, I think.
But now that we've delved into that and tinkered with that, the thing that I discussed last time was when you talk about chance and when you talk about forces, these are things that are unconscious and unguided. For example, forces, all they do is they describe things. They don't have creative processes. I'll give you an example. Like the law of arithmetic. Yeah, I may have money in my bank account. I may use the law of arithmetic to explain that, but the law of arithmetic will not create money in my bank account. Believe me, I've tried. Yeah, just having a law.
I gave you an example where, let's say, this is a very classic example. Back in the day, you've got the ocean of molecules, Some molecules come together in a certain form. That form allowed it to replicate that molecular shape, And then some of them got better at replicating that.
There's a presupposition there, though.
What's the
that you've missed out, which is you've got something which is unconscious giving rise to conscious matter.
No,
where did that come from?
I was sitting in my room one day and I had this toy and it had like balls and they're all magnetic, and I was just pissing about with them. They were on my desk and there was like a string of one of them, a string of three of them, a string of four of them. I realized if I threw the ball along, it would sort of go and all the magnets would go like that. And I thought, that's random. Look, if I had like a massive table of different shapes of magnets and I threw one magnet, it would go, do you know what I mean? Let's say in one of the times that I did it, it turned into a shape. And then it went along another shape, and it broke in part, but they were similar. That one went off, and then it broke in part again. That's a replicating magnetic system.
I got you.
And then you keep doing that system through this thing, and you start thinking, oh shit, look, one of them is building this wall around itself, and now it's replicating like this. That is a force-driven, creative outcome.
I disagree. Not force-driven, person-driven, because there's a Because it's a person that initially rolled the magnet to begin with.
I'll do the famous...
the prime mover. You are the prime mover.
No, I'll do the famous argument, which is, give me one miracle and I'll explain the rest. Which I don't mind doing, which is, look, at the very, like, T plus one.
But I'm not going to give you that first miracle, though.
That's how I'm going to exist, which is just straight after the Big Bang.
So you're relying on me giving you that first miracle in order for you to make your argument?
I mean, like, if you grant that, I'll show you...
But I don't want to grant you that, because I think that's a very important path to discussion, which if granted, I think then it's just it just comes across lazy. So one is, you've got the person rolling the magnet to begin with. Number two, you've got somebody that has all of these magnets in place.
Yeah,
but you don't have plastic. There's not wood. They're not just dead objects like graphite or Ethereum or whatever it is, like even things that are abstract.
Yeah.
You've got things with properties that have been put in place. You've rolled the ball in such a way that it's going past them. You have an intention in mind. You've willed something. And all I'm saying is that if you've got all of these molecules and everything coming in place, you've got clearly creatures that have design in them. You've got even the staunchest of atheists like Richard Dawkins saying, you know what, the design argument is, in fact, he says the fine-tuning argument is the most convincing to him, even though he doesn't believe in God. Then you've got Fred Hoyle saying the fine-tuning of, say, the carbon atoms coming together. For a person to say, you know what, it's just one coincidence after another coincidence after, there comes a time, for example, if there's a coin, heads and tails, I flip it, I get heads. And again. But Jamie, if I'm standing here and it's the 500th time I'm getting a heads, you're more within your right to say, you know what, we have to check the coin out. You know what I mean? Like, it's getting ridiculous now.
Do you think that's an accurate description of the current universe that we're in?
I definitely do think so.
There was some sort of influence that made it kept going towards a specific type of outcome. Is that what you're positing?
I'll give you an example. Carbon is the building block of life. In order for carbon to form, you need 3 helium molecules. Those 3 helium molecules...
Is it 8?
No, 3.
Okay.
So 3 helium molecules create 1 carbon. And they need to be within 1% of the nuclear ground state energy for even carbon to form. You go and you look at even, for example, the distance of the sun and the earth. It has to be within 2%. It's called the Goldilocks zone. If it's too far, we freeze. If it's too close, we burn. You may say that's still a coincidence. I say even if you look at the atom, the atom of the 2 forces within the atom, the electromagnetic force and nuclear strong force, they have to be within 1/10 to the power 16.
This is the fine-tuning argument.
But then you might go further and you might say, but I would say at the beginning of the universe, it had to be within 1/10 to the power 50.
Actually, let's say, sure, this is fine-tuning.
So what I'm saying is the reason why I'm saying that the example that I gave of a heads, I would fine-tune that even more, pardon the pun, is I would say if I flick it, and it lands on its side once.
Brilliant.
And then I flip it lands on its side again. And then I flip it lands on its side again. Like 50 times. A person will go, you know what? This is getting like ridiculous now.
So let me reinterpret your argument. So you're saying there was this God chap, and he was there and he went hocus pocus, let me derive a universe into being. I'm going to make it with all these rules and regulations at the beginning, and oh, look at that, it's worked out. And then did he just run the system from do you know what I mean, time 0, and he just ran the system forward?
So if
or
you
did
look,
he intervene along the way?
So that's what I'm saying. That's what my initial argument was, that we depend upon something that depends on something else. So every creation that you see ultimately depends on God. So the involvement of God in the equation is integral. It's not somebody that's just got something started and then he's gone off like the Spinozan God or the God of the philosophers. We believe God is involved when it comes to creation, whether it's through forces, whether it's through forces, whether it's through mechanisms, we have no issue believing in that.
Just to try and ask a question, how much is his influence? Let's say, I'm not really sure with the formulas of physics, but I think one of them is F equals ma, force equals mass times acceleration, and it describes like a Newtonian way that things move, can God interfere with that law just like at any sort of time? Like 2,000 years ago, he said, oh, look, I need this cannonball to sort of have a bit more power. Does he engage in that sort of manner?
No, because there's an assumption here that God didn't know that he would change his mind later on in the future. We believe God is all-knowing, so he knows what he would do. There's no need. Yeah. Well, that's the all-knowing. That's the perks of being all-knowing. You're clever, isn't it? So then God, that's what happens, that in the future, we don't believe that God changes his mind. Yeah. We believe he's all-knowing. However, coming back to the point, we believe God is a creator of mechanisms, and these are all mechanisms. Though the tinkering that you're referring to is, well, I don't know if it was mentioned by David Hume, which was the argument of miracles. Yeah, that's the argument that you're referring to. That's not the argument when it comes to the daily functioning of things.
Just one more thing, and then I think I have to go.
No problem.
Let's say I say, no way am I ever going to believe in a God. I'm just going to study the natural world and just love all of these mechanisms. Am I just learning about God through a different path?
You're learning about the product of God.
Yeah, I just do that for my whole life. Is that a good life?
I'll give you an example. It's
no,
like...
It's not, apparently.
It's not, because I'll maybe challenge the...
rock and roll, man.
Maybe challenge these... don't get too excited too quickly. It's like me giving you a gift, yeah? And you take the gift.
Yeah.
And then I give you another gift. Maybe it's the latest iPhone, then it's the latest PlayStation, it's GTA 6, pre-release, it's come out. And I give you. You don't say thank you, you say, you know what? I'm just going to appreciate the game. So I would say that's ungratefulness, because what you're doing is you're excluding the person or the individual giving you the thing. And an example could be your heart that beats 100,000 times a day. You take it, you're like, you know what? I appreciate my heart, which is good. I think it's a good start. But, and to be honest, I don't think, and I don't close the book on yourself, I don't think you should either, that maybe tomorrow you may come across a certain understanding, or you may view things in a different way, and you may change your approach. You may say, you know what, this is starting to make more sense. For some people, Jamie, you know what it is? It's experience. For some people, it's just, you know what, maybe I was too emotionally charged when it came to, I'm not saying you are, maybe I was too emotionally charged with that bit, maybe my knowledge of physics lacked with that bit, but what I'm saying is that if you logically think about the options that we have, when you see the amount of design, the amount of complexity, the amount of purpose that you see around you, even in yourself, and you conclude, you know what, it came by chance. It came by itself.
I think that's a misrepresentation of the argument, but I think we've got to cut it there.
But what it is what you're saying is, you extrapolated that further by saying, you know what, one molecule coming together in a certain place, which is chance, then it's another...
But chance undermines the description of the process. Chance.
How would you describe it?
Chance invokes this idea like it's just a whim, just like anything can happen.
Isn't that what it is?
No, it's not that at all. It's a description of like...
You're giving agency to chance, which is a concrete principle.
No. It's like saying...
It's the fallacy of reification.
It's like saying... It just gets... I don't know if this works, but it's like, oh, he chanced to get onto whatever bus that was around in London. No, you got onto a there's a specificity.
Yeah,
to this situation. It seems like you're just hand waving when you say chance. As in, like, do you see how airy that term is? But
listen to what you're saying, though.
Many of the things that I've described.
You're saying there is a mind behind the chance.
No, I'm not. I'm saying there is a shape to these molecules, a specific shape. There is a reason why carbon is the backbone of everything that is built upon in our zone. Yeah, there's an order to it that is like.
But order and purpose comes from a conscious being with will, with power. How can it come from something which itself is unguided? Materialistic, you know what I mean?
Well, I'll give you one example then. Let's say, so I have no idea what happened before the universe, I don't even understand, But let's say universes come out into existence like this. There's just trillions and trillions of universes. They all have different numbers in their starting states. Fine tuning, isn't it? One of them has the numbers that we currently experience, These numbers exploded, energy turned into matter at the, what's it called? The periodic table, with the atomic forces and the electron and the neutron, and these shapes were able to bind in these specific
How
ways.
Convenient.
Incredibly convenient. But remember, millions and trillions of universes are coming into existence every moment.
No, but again, you're assuming the fact that there is a multiverse. There is no multiverse. There's no evidence to suggest that.
As I've said to you before, if you try and talk before this universe, even that sentence doesn't make sense, because before the universe and time and everything. Remember my position was you can't speak outside of that. So I'm just saying, look, from this
You can't speak outside of it, but you can infer though.
No, I don't think so. I think everything breaks down. Anyway.
No, but you think though, isn't it? Which is good. What you're doing is you're inferring. Because you don't know.
Yeah.
You're inferring that it breaks down. I'm inferring that it's not. We bring our cases forward and then we see what makes the most sense. That's how it's called inference to the best explanation.
Yeah.
We're not claiming that this is fact, what happened before and this is that.
Yeah.
We're saying that, okay, this seems to make the most sense. You're saying, no, the multiverse is there. We're saying, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Let's falsify it. What's the evidence for that?
Yeah.
Is there any evidence for the multiverse?
As I said, I don't think it's empirical evidence. I think it's an outcrop of another theory that has reliable...
So you believe it's a hypothesis?
Yeah. Or it's like one interpretation of a certain set of data that we've picked up. I think we talked past each other a little bit, but it was good chatting with you.
It's always nice to have these conversations,
I've got
Jamie.
another thing. I started listening to the Quran a little bit, and I've got a contentious topic that I won't bring up now, but I'll come back to you eventually.
Sure, fantastic.
You're very pleasant-mannered. And
Thank you.
I think we can have a good
Likewise.
conversation.
Likewise.
Yeah,
Thank you.
everyone.
I'll take that.
Cheers.
Thanks.
One day he will wake up and
Maybe
say,
I'll
what?
wake up. Yeah, I'll set the alarm.
What was I listening? What I was talking about? My goodness, there is a God.